Well, welcome back, folks. Well, today's the big day. This is the day we're going to finally start, for the first time, the little Yamaha YL1 project bike. It's hard to believe I've been working on this project almost 2 years. It's now early May 2020, and I look back over the photos I took during the initial breakdown of the project, and the first photo was dated June 8, 2018. So that's the approximate time I pulled the bike into the shop and started working on it, so almost 2 years. Now, of course, I haven't worked on it full time for 2 years. I was working at the time. I'm now retired, had been retired for about a year, as some of you know. So the pace picked up over the last 6 months to a year or so, and we're closing in on finishing up this project. I do expect this will be one of the very last videos on the YL1 project, because essentially it's complete. I do have to finish the mufflers, getting the chroming done, paint the fuel tank a little bit later on this summer when it gets just a touch warmer outside, and then install the seat, and then I'll consider the project a wrap. Might be a few incidentals I'll have to take care of, but we are closing in on finishing up this project. So this will probably be the last major video I'll do on this project. A couple of things I'd like to talk about before we get to the actual starting procedure and getting the bike running. And it has not been started yet. I have not even attempted to start it. But a couple of things I did want to talk about. Number one, I fully expect it's going to smoke out of the exhaust a lot. I used a lot of assembly lube when I put the engine back together, so I'm expecting the lower end and the cylinders are full of assembly lube, as well as I am going to be running a 32-to-1 mixture of Yamaha lube in the fuel. I'm doing that purely as a preventive measure to make sure nothing goes wrong until I'm confident the oil pump, the two-stroke oil pump, is pumping the way it's supposed to. I think it's going to be fine, but that's a little another layer of confidence building and security to make sure I'm getting a proper oil to the engine. Once the oil pump comes online and is pumping, then of course we're going to have even more oil being dumped into the combustion chambers, hence I think she's going to smoke a lot. Second thing is, I think it's going to leak. And what I mean by that, a couple of places. Primary leaks are going to probably come from the exhaust system, that is exhaust leaks. Again, keep in mind I'm going to pull the exhaust system back off and send it off eventually to be re-chromed. Consequently, I have not really tightened up all the exhaust fittings. They're snug, but they're not as tight as I'd normally make them. So it'll probably wisp a little bit out of the various joints where the header pipes join the heads and or the muffler bodies themselves. Fully expected. Number two, I think we're going to have some dribbling of oil out of the exhaust system. I expect where the cylinders and the header pipes come together that we're going to have a little drooling of oil, because there is so much oil in the system, as I just mentioned, that I expect to have some drooling here and there, and maybe even out of the back of the exhaust. The last area it potentially could leak, and there are no leaks right now. As I'm standing here at this point, there's nothing leaking. The transmission is tight. The oil pump is now tight. I have no other leaks. But where the banjo fittings from the feed pipes to the cylinders from the oil pump are attached, it's possible I might have a little leakage there that I'll have to fix eventually also. So few leaks are not unanticipated here at all. It's just something you have to anticipate. I charged the carburetors with fuel yesterday. I want to make sure neither one of them was leaking, and they're fuel tight right now. I have no fuel leaks right at this point at all. The fuel is shut off, but they were charged. And of course, all the fluids have been checked. The ignition system has been checked, and I do have spark on both cylinders. The battery is fully charged, and I think we've got pretty much everything ready to go in terms of trying to start the bike. Now, in terms of starting it, I'm not intending to run it very long. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'm really over-oiling it, and that is a tricky condition to get into. Besides the fact it creates a lot of smoke and carbon, it actually has a net effect of leaning out your fuel mixture. So I'm going to run the bike long enough to get it started and make sure the oil pump is working. Once the oil pump is working and all the air has been purged out of the lines, then I will pull the fuel mixture off and put straight gas back in it for future running purposes, because I don't want to run it too long on this overly rich mixture. And the other thing that I need to do is obviously is verify that I've got or don't have leaks. If I've got any leaks, I'll have to make note of where those are at and make sure the oil pump is working correctly. The carburetors I have adjusted or synchronized. However, the slides are currently in a very low position. That is, I don't expect the bike is going to idle. I'm going to have to, I think, adjust the carburetors to bring that idle up a little bit. And whether I'll get to that in this video or not, I'm not sure, but don't expect it at this point to idle on its own because of the way I've got the carburetor set, at least the idle speed. So those are a few of the comments I want to make before I get started on trying to start this. It's a nice day outside today. It's a little cool, but it is sunny. It's bright outside. So I'm going to have to set up reconfigure the cameras a little bit, set up the overhead doors and get them open. I'm going to lower the heat in the shop because I'm afraid that the heat's going to want to cut in when I open those big overhead doors. It's cool enough that the heat might try to turn on, and see if we can't go ahead and get this started. You'll note that the fuel lines are still connected here, and I have them zip tied up out of the way. I don't want those vinyl lines to lay up against that the cylinders or head of the engine because they'll melt. And of course they go up to the temporary auxiliary fuel tank that's up to the right out of the view of the camera right now. But once the bike gets started, I can turn the fuel taps back on over here and recharge the carburetor with fuel. But right now they're charged, but the fuel valves are off. You'll also notice some of the oil absorbent pads I've got strategically placed. I've got pads here underneath the engine that would be to capture any dribbles from the header pipes here. I've got a couple of pieces of pad taped up underneath the joint of the header pipe to the cylinders themselves. That's usually a prime spot where they leak. I'm trying to avoid getting excessive oil on the front of my nice clean engine. And also here at the rear you'll see a couple of pads are placed in case any oil wants to spew out of the end of the exhaust. I'll try to capture it here on these oil absorbent pads. Okay, I think we're about ready to go. Well, there you go. She started. You can see a little bit of oil here coming out of the exhaust. splattering around. The idle has to be brought up a bit, as I expected, and the right cylinder seems to be cutting out from time to time, so I'm going to check the plug on this side, see what's going on with that cylinder. Other than that, she's running. So let me go ahead and see if I can't get that idle up a little bit and check that plug on the right side, and then I'll bring it. Well, I checked the right cylinder spark plug, and I really didn't see anything wrong with it. It is, I do have hot spark there, so I just swapped the plugs around. I put the spark plug that was on the right side on the left and see if the problem follows. That would tell me it's a spark plug. If the problem doesn't follow the plug, then I might try a second plug here just to see if that makes a difference. I might have a problem with the coil or something. I don't know right now. I also brought the idle up a bit. I don't know if I brought it up enough or perhaps too much. We'll see here in a minute. And the oil pump is pumping. I can tell that all the air bubbles, there are a couple air bubbles in the lines. Those are gone, and I don't right now see any evidence of leaking at the banjo fittings, but they might show up a little bit later. So let's go ahead and see if we can't get it started and see what the idle looks like. folks, the little 1966 Yamaha YL1 Twin Jet 100 is live. We'll be coming to the end of the video series on a little Yamaha YL1 here fairly soon. Once I get the fuel tank finished and eventually get the mufflers re-chromed. I have a few other incidentals to check. The charging system voltage regulator, I'll do those off camera. And that'll be about it for the project. I don't know how many videos are going to be left in this series. There might be a couple before it's all over. I'm not going to really show much of the work on the fuel tank itself because that will be protracted and drawn out over time. I might bring you back here and there for some snapshots of what I'm doing, but I'm not intending to video record the entire repair and repainting of the fuel tank. The mufflers, once I find someone to re-chrome them, I'll obviously be sending them off somewhere to have that done. As of this recording today, I don't have a shop willing to do them yet, so I'm just going to leave them in place for now. And certainly at the other end of this whole thing, when the bike is done, at least through the fuel tank and getting the seat back on, I will do a bit of a final review and wrap up of the project and show you what it looks like as it's all complete. That's going to be it for this video today, folks. Any issues, thoughts, questions, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.